Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Good evening, viewers, and welcome to the Jaipur Military Dialogue under the aegis of Clause. And welcome to Brigadier Karan Singh Rathore and Gen Sudhakar Jee. On the panel, the experts, geopolitical, international defense, all encompassing, giving us the inputs on the various issues. For last couple of weeks, we had discussed the neighboring countries immediately neighbors of our country, India, starting with Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and now today we have, after Sri Lanka, we have a discussion on the various aspects of Maldives. A word about Maldives, the geopolitical status, the geographical location, the proximity to India, and a prominent location in the Indian Ocean. The historical perspective, which goes back to 3,000, 4,000 years back, initially inhabited by the Indians, some of them from Sri Lanka. Then they had a kingdom there, which later on, during Emperor Ashoka's time, the country became Buddhist. And it is Maldives is a Sanskrit word which goes to Mala and Deep. So it is a garland of islands around. If you look at it in the, say, enlarge the view of Maldives, so it's a garland which is around that place. And subsequently, in around 1193, 93, Islam came to Maldives and they converted to Islam, and they continued. And with that, initially the king ruled there. Then it became, it came under the British Empire, and they started a republic, which was along with the king's decision and the referendum, which was taken by the population. Incidentally, the population of Maldives is very, very less scarce, and they have a location which is always dangerously, above the sea level. I think it is from 4 feet to 7 feet is the height which they have of the mean sea level above that. So it is assumed, and research have been done that coming times Maldives will lose a lot of islands if the sea level increases. India and Maldives relations have been since ages, and as the things progressed after the British Empire, Maldives got its independence, and we had a close relationship due to the historical perspective and the location of Maldives, which is in the southwest of Indian Ocean, connecting towards the Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean, going towards the trade sea lanes which are there. And this was the reason why the location of Maldives became very important for us. And they have been incorporated in various issues. And we have had a number of uh, occasions when India helped them out. Once we had sent our uh, para forces there to restore their democratic system of government, which was there, help them out. Economically, India have been helping them out. And even during the COVID, India had helped them out. And recently, after the election and the present setup of government came, though it came that they are more aligned towards China, but in spite of that, their needs of financial needs were met by our government. The point in issue is that Indian Ocean is very important to us. And out of the seven oceans which we used to hear in our childhood, also Sat Samundar Par. So Indian Ocean is the only ocean which has the name of a country. and that's why it's known as Indian Ocean. So importance of the Indian Ocean and India is connected. History is connected, and all these islands probably which is there, the small nations scattered on the Indian Ocean, at some point of time they were the part of the Indian Empire, either during Ashok's time, before that, Chola dynasty, culturally, historically. They were part of that. And today it has assumed more importance because last time what we had discussed and I suggested that instead of having an Andaman Nicobar command, we should have an Indian Ocean command, which looks after all these aspects. The second issue is that the proximity to the Lakshadweep island and the Maldives is of around 100 kilometers. The nearest one, it was 60, 70 something. So I take it as broadly 100 kilometers. So my viewpoint on this is that जो हमारे पास है उनको डेवलप करेंगे तो I think things will the influence area of influence will automatically increase, and some collaboration with that investment which is required should be done in Lakshadweep and the islands of Andaman Nicobar Island, which are spread over the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean. So that is the issue which needs to be seen, and Maldives can be incorporated in that. And with that, I will request Jan Sundarji to cover the strategic importance of Maldives and our relationship. A lot of MOUs have been signed, which have into the commercial activities, the military activities, and a future assistance what India have given to Maldives. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Virender, and good evening, Brigadier Rathore, sir, and very good evening to our viewers. Very quickly, let me. Time is 7:08. So let me cover the first important part of this. Today's conversation is about Maldives' geostrategic importance. So, when we talk about the geostrategic importance, it's very important for all of us to understand what is the geography, how is it aligned? Because even the alignment of a particular feature, direction wise, also lends itself to geostrategic importance. The first and foremost thing is that this particular island territory or the archipelago, it is in a north-south alignment towards the southern tip and north of the equator. It is got around 1190 coral islands, and they are distributed into atolls, 26 major atolls. What is atoll? Atoll is a double ring kind of islands, double ring, with a slight rise from the sea level. So they have a flattish surface. The soil is mud is visible. So it is a double ring. Between the two rings, you have water body. These are atolls. It has got an entry point. It has got an exit point, and they are broken up into small pieces of island in between. Next thing I want to highlight is the length. It is approximately 820 kilometers north south, and width wise it is approximately around 120 kilometers to 125 kilometers, and the shortest distance from the Indian coastline from Kochi is around 398 kilometers from southwest of Kochi. Another important aspect is it is approximately 130 kilometers from the northernmost island of Maldives. So why am I bringing out this is because I am trying to take the listeners or the audience to a very narrow corridor through which the sea lanes of communication passes. Now, what is sea lane of communication? SLOC is generally defined in Indian Ocean from the Persian Gulf, passing through this particular corridor, which is got called as the 9-degree corridor. Actually, the Lakshadweep Island and the Maldives, they are so co-located. Lakshadweep, actually, those of us who have been there, it is not a very big archipelago. It has got 36 small little island territory, and some of them are big. Jatayu is one place where we are actually developing Minikoi. Minikoi is part of Lakshadweep. It is the southernmost most island. It is biased towards Maldives. Once upon a time, Maldives also used to claim Minikoi Island. So it is between the Minicoy Island, and there is another island by the name of Thurakunu. Between this, the distance is about 200 kilometers. Depth of this corridor is around 2,579 kilometers. This is what defines the 9-degree channel. And through this 9-degree channel, almost equivalent to 70% of the international cargo, the global trade in oil, 70%. Okay, and gas is 50%. Oil and gas is 70% global trade, and 50% of container traffic passes through this. So you can well imagine what would be the quantum of numbers of the vessels which would be passing through. These are the statistics of 2018. They might have undergone some change in past 6 7 years, and but it would be very marginal. Percentage would remain same. But most important point is, I want our viewers to understand. Population you have already covered. It was around 4 lakhs in 2018. Now I think it has crossed 5 lakh. And out of 5 lakh, you have about 29 to 30,000 people who belong to India. So this has to be your teachers, you have different kinds of professional accountants, you have paramedics, you have doctors, you have lawyers, those kind of people who are there. And even the masonry, basic workforce, skilled laborers, they belong to India. So, the specialist forces, although our armed forces people have come back, they have taken some civilian people to operate these 2 helicopters, and some vessels have been presented to them. Most important point is that it being in the proximity, firstly, the caste, the religion has to be kept in mind. It is predominantly a Sunni Muslim dominated country. And in the past, there have been cases of radicalization reported from this country. Large number of population from Maldives have gone to Pakistan to take their take their coaching in madrasas. Also, large number of people have got subverted. They have gone and joined ISIS from Maldives. So likewise, there are a host of other issues. India, at one point in time, at the peak of our relationship, best of relationship, we had gone in for an understanding to take more than 20 islands, install our radars. Radars, basically, this is located at such a layer, or in such a location that it is most vulnerable and prone to storms, very frequent storms. Now, seawater. The level of seawater, we all are aware of the climate change. The level of water is rising so much. This is the only island in the world, rather, it is the lowest level in comparison to the mean sea level. It is, as on today, I think it is 3 meters above the sea level. Please do correct me if I am wrong. This I used to deal with Maldives. So I've been to Maldives quite a few times as DDGMO Special Ops, and by turn of the century, it is estimated by the domain experts that this island will become non-existent. So that means the rapid rate of increase of water, or the level of water, is so high that the island had started showing prominent signatures of submersion. Submersion. It is going under the water slowly. That is the criticality which I wanted to share. Next point that I wanted to share is uh, that people should do well when they keep in mind the historical perspective Brigadier Virender has covered. But one point we have to keep in mind, it is to be during British India Empire, this particular country is to be under the British monarchy. It remained under the British monarchy till it became independent in 1965, 26 July 1965. Now it has got an island, Gan Island, and the British used to utilize Maldives for different purposes because, as you are aware, south of this is Diogo Gracia. And also, importantly, you must keep in mind out of 5 lakh, approximately 5 lakh population, not all islands, I counted around 1190 islands, not all, around 200 islands are habitable, And out of these 200 islands, I think 80 odd island, if I am not wrong, 200 of them are habitable by locals and 80 of them belong to the previous erstwhile, they used to be called as the king's resorts, which have been built upon them. And these atolls that I have told you, 960-kilometer long, submarine ridge, it's like a submarine. It is under the water for 960 kilometers. Only the top ridge portion is visible, over which this particular archipelago is actually visible to naked eye. So these are few points which I thought I must share. But importantly, we also need to keep in mind that the governance of the island, and by virtue of its location, China has been making very deep inroads post 2011 to make deep penetration. Earlier, the diplomatic mission of China used to be located at Colombo. They used to exercise their diplomatic mandate, discharge the diplomatic mandate on the Maldives from Colombo. But from 2011 onwards, they started securing the toehold, and gradually they have been expanding. And you all know about the story of GMR, how the company, which initially of Indian company, which was supposed to be developing the Hulhule airport and that bypass road. Everything had been done in favor of Indian company, but Chinese intervention, it finally had to be surrendered to Chinese company, and that started the bitter and acrimonious kind of a relationship between India and China in Maldives. As on today, we all are aware as to how China's Belt and Road Initiative has made Maldives a debt trap country, and to get out of the debt, it had to rely on India, and India's timely, responsible, and mature intervention has actually balanced out a lot of issues, especially the power, balancing out power between India and China in the Indian Ocean region, rather Arabian Sea, I would say. And in reference to Maldives is a very important issue because of 9-degree channel. Towards one end is the Minicoy Island, which has been developed into a naval base in the recent past, in past 1.5 to 2 years, which is called a Jatayu. It's not a very big base; it's a small one, although, but it will help us to dominate one of the shoulders of this important 9-degree channel. So, to the north of 9-degree channel is Jatayu or the Minicoy Island, which belongs to Lakshadweep, and to the south is to the north is Minicoy, and further north is actually Lakshadweep. There is a nearby island which I told you is something is by the name of Thurakunu. Thurakunu. So the in between is 200 kilometers. This channel falls in Indian Ocean region. So therefore, India must continue to assert its presence and dominance in this particular corridor and keep a watch on the 9-degree channel, because mind you, in previous conversation I have highlighted a couple of issues. China's energy security passes through this lock, which is from Persian Gulf through 9-degree channel, then goes through 10-degree channel across the Andamans, through Malacca Strait, and then to the East China Sea. So as long as we have these choke points kept under us and we continue to dominate, our response matrix will be much more effective and better than what it was in the past. Also need to keep in mind that this country has gone through a series of military coups. That has to, because that indicates that there is no political stability. And foreign intervention, particularly China, into such kind of countries is possible because the political stability has been lacking in the past. I would like to go into detail from Nasi to Salil and all those people now, Muizu. But above all, we should be mindful of another important issue, that it is not all about India and China. There is a strategic rivalry going on in the Indian Ocean today. There are multiple stakeholders. Iran, Saudi Arabia, such like countries have come in. Pakistan is coming in a big way. But there is a strategic rivalry going on between USA and China in Indian Ocean, and hence Maldives being where it is today geographically, it plays a very important role. Neither of the two stakeholders are comfortable with their dominance in this thing, so each one is trying to push out the other. Next point I have to share is the tsunami. When the tsunami took place in 2004, that towards primarily towards the Bay of Bengal side. We always say it was an Indian Ocean earthquake, but predominantly it was towards Bay of Bengal side. The impact on Maldives was so high that almost less than 9 islands, earthquake and complete Maldives, comprising of 1190 islands or the small little island territories, less 9 islands, except for islands, rest all islands had been devastated because of tsunami. This is a very important. So I'm trying to highlight how sensitive and vulnerable this particular island territory or the country can be. Next point I have to highlight or share with the audience is I have covered about the Islamic radicalization and how it is expanding by the day. I have also covered about Chinese penetration into the system. GMR I have covered. I have covered as to how Maldives, yes, India's areas of interest. We must continue to develop this into a kind of eyes and ears as far as India is concerned, and prevent any entry of external factors coming into this area under surveillance. Maldives is member of a SARC that we know. SARC is defunct, although Yunus is making an all-out effort to revive very concept of SARC. And last but not the least, what I wish to share is that the future of Maldives. The future of Maldives can be divided into two halves as far as my understanding is concerned. We are in 2025, and from 2025, let's say, let's take a milestone of the timeline of 2050. What is going to happen to Maldives in this timeline? As per my estimate and assessment, Maldives is going to witness the following things. There is going to be an enhanced strategic rivalry between multiple stakeholders, especially America and China, inside Maldives and outside Maldives. One. Second, there is going to be an increasing radicalization. Any increase in radicalization in Maldives will have direct and indirect bearing on the southern part of our country. It has happened in the past, it will happen. It will have a direct bearing on the Sri Lanka itself. So this is second. Third point, uh, all those rich people in Maldives, you will find most of them, they have got a house in India, in Thiruvananthapuram. These are the people who come, the old age people, they come to India for medical treatment. The rich class in the society, they have their children studying in the best of education system in India. South India, some of them are in St. Stephen in Delhi. Some of them are good doctors. Some senior military officers have done NDC with us. Their dependence on India, no matter what stance each government does or resorts to, will continue to increase by virtue of the geographical proximity. And India, being where it is today, will continue to remain as the first responder in the Indian Ocean. Also, as a member of Quad, we are expected to discharge our mandate as a net security provider to Maldives. Expected. Why I'm saying that expected is because of lack of political stability in Maldives. Therefore, India has gone in for a trilateral kind of grouping between Sri Lanka, Maldives, and India. In between, Maldives, by virtue of their belligerent attitude towards India, when India out movement was picking up momentum, Maldives unilaterally had withdrawn from this trilateral commitment, if you recall. So, with great amount of diplomacy and lot of effort from India's side, compliments, kudos to our people, military as also the diplomats, we have managed to bring the status quo ante or back to the previous understanding and commitment. Also, when during the criticality, economic criticality, when the debt servicing could not be done, they were defaulting, sovereign default was going on, about to take place. India came to rescue. I don't remember the exact amount. I think it is close to around 4.2 billion, as much as we have paid or helped out Sri Lanka. I think close to $4 billion. And hence, there is a attitudinal change of the leadership of Maldives. There is a attitudinal change of the political dispensation of Maldives as of now. How long will it last in a very fragile kind of a society and environment, the way we see that the ring of fire is shifting from Sri Lanka to the Maldives to Bangladesh to Nepal, from Nepal to Ladakh. I don't know whether it is going to be cyclic in nature. So we need to remain mindful and engaged. And last but not the least, Brigadier Virender, is that there is a lesson which I wish to highlight. The lesson is India, by virtue of its neighborhood first policy, maybe we are not clear about the modus operandi. We are learning also by burning our finger. We have been engaging with only the ruling party, political party of a neighborhood. It's time we have burnt our finger, we have learned the harder way. I think there is a requirement to engage with anybody and everybody, because you never know in this era of social media and with shifting stance and attitude who will be beneficial at what time is very difficult. And it is very difficult also to strategize your move with in consonance with the national interest of India permanently. There will be stages of vacuum, there will be stages of anti-India rhetoric, there will be stages of lack of cooperation and isolation. So we should be mindful of all these contingencies and plan out some kind of a counter strategy to keep all the neighborhood countries with India so as to meet our long term national interests. That's all. Back to you, Virendra.
Thank you, sir. Very vividly, you have depicted the status of Maldives, encompassing the strategic location, the relationship between India, Maldives, and Maldives, China, and the interests of US into the Indian Ocean. The most I would put it across that the last what we had mentioned, that we generally interact with the political parties, the government of the day, but the political parties and the government of day keeps on changing, and probably the policies are not stable. So there is a need that we should connect on a more broader front in the armored corps parlance, so that we can look after every need. And with this, I'll go to Brigadier Karan Singh Rathore for covering the maritime strategic importance of Maldives, what all we have gone through, and probably what in the future likely to be there. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Birendra. Uh, Brigadier General Sudhakar Jee has brought out some very relevant points, and he has put the entire framework in place. I would like to point out why Maldives. I like the highlight why Maldives is important to India. If we look at the geography, as what General Sudhakar Jee was indicating, to the north lies Lakshadweep, and to the south lies the British territory of Diego Garcia, which is where the Americans have a very large base. It's one of the largest bases that they have in the Indian Ocean. If we look further northwest, the entire trade, the sea lines of communications emanating from the Red Sea and from the Persian Gulf, as General Sudhakar said, they're 3,000 kilometers away. They come and pass through the Maldives and our Lakshadweep Islands, and then they pass through, go on around Sri Lanka and enter, whether they go to Lombok Strait or they go through Malacca Strait. We are looking at almost 70% of Chinese trade and 40% of Japanese trade passing through these sea lines of communications. While we ourselves have two naval establishments, and Karavati, which is in the north of Lakshadweep, and INS Jatayu, which is in the southernmost tip on Minicoy Islands. And we militarily and from naval point of view, we will be able to build up Lakshadweep in a way that we will be able to have a good presence in this area. However, the one person who doesn't have a presence in this area is the Chinaman. and he is desperate to somehow get a foothold. One part of this foothold was this when he took Hambantota Island, Hambantota port in Sri Lanka on a 99-year lease because the Sri Lankans defaulted on payments, and so the control of the port went to the Chinese. That gives him a certain footprint in the area. And if he were to get a similar facility on the Maldives, he will be able to to have his influence in this area. It will really reinforce his ability to influence operations in this area. At present, because of the long distances involved and the fact that Hambantota is in close vicinity to India, his ability to influence operations in Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean is at the moment limited. But as we see that his ability to project naval power is increasing very dynamically. Recently, they have demonstrated an aircraft carrier with this E-MALS type of aircraft launching capability, and number of aircraft carriers are building, and so we can expect at certain point in time he would be able to move on this side of the Malacca Strait and operate his naval power, his aircraft carriers and the assorted ships that accompany the aircraft carriers, and be able to influence this area. It is to counter this that Maldives becomes of critical importance to us. To the south, we have Diego Garcia, which is with the Americans and the British. To the north, we have our Lakshadweep. We cannot allow under any circumstance the Chinaman to get a footprint, to get a foothold in the Maldives. They are following the usual route of the Belt and Road Initiative. Maldives, almost, if you say, almost about 70% of Maldives' debt is linked to Chinese loans or to projects which have been undertaken by China. And Chinese loans, whether direct loans or projects which are undertaken, are usually undertaken by Chinese companies with Chinese labor. And so the host country doesn't benefit much, but it certainly has to repay, and their repayment terms are far tighter, the interest rates are higher, and the loan periods the period is short. And so therefore countries like Sri Lanka and all, which fell easy prey to taking or accessing these loans, well, later on they realized they had made a big mistake. And so therefore, what Maldives presently is doing from 24, where Moizu came in with the India out slogan, and he threw out GMR, as Gen Sudhakar Jee said, and the Indian 60-70 personnel who were there maintaining aircraft, etc., and some boats and all that, they were thrown out, now replaced by civilians. But then he realized that without Indian support, he will not survive, at least for the moment. Maldives will have a serious problem. Because if India were to, one trip of the Prime Minister to Lakshadweep and some silly posts by their ministers against the Prime Minister brought down their Indian tourism, the Indians who constitute almost 20% of the tourist movement in Lakshadweep. It was brought down by almost about 45 to 48%, and which was a huge blow to them. And geographically, they are more connected to India than China. China is too far, and India is right next to them. In fact, just about 200 kilometers if you take Minicoy Islands and their northernmost island of Maldives, and we have Kerala and Thiruvananthapuram further to the northeast. We are the country which will be able to help them out in all situations, whether it is disaster management or like the coup which happened in 1988, that attempted coup where paras went and landed over there and sort of restored the government. They have come to realize that without Indian support, and Indian benevolence, they will have a rough going. But that apart, the other issues which General Sudhakar Jee pointed out, the increasing radicalization, the connections with ISIS, we may find that this anti-India feeling may permeate so deep that they would be willing to risk these. And if they continue this heavy dependence on China, if we are not able to check it, uh, at some point in time, some government amends their constitution where they do not allow any foreign presence in their territory, which is their constitution at the moment. That is what their constitution says. And then, if the Chinese are able to establish a permanent presence in Maldives, that will not be a good situation. So, for India also, we need to see as to how we deal with Maldives. That brings me to what Brigadier Birendra was saying and what General Sudhakar Jee was also saying. We need to see how we deal with our neighbors. Historically, we have been dealing as a soft power. But that soft power, if it is not backed up by the mailed fist, is not very powerful enough. And therefore, not only should we deal with a wider cross section of the society, we must develop aggressively our own areas of influence in Maldives and Maldives society, who are able to influence the decision making that goes on in that country. It's got a small population of 5 lakh and something. We already have a large presence. So there are ways and means of increasing our presence, increasing our soft power interaction, but which is also backed up by a capability where we will not accept Chinese presence coming into this area on a permanent basis. Uh, that is something where if it does happen, then it will be a major sort of setback for us. Because while we are very strong in the Andamans, Lakshadweeps at the moment are not so positioned that they can facilitate the operating of a large force of the Lakshadweeps in this entire area. So uh, our strategy is more on denial of Chinese presence in Maldives and to neutralize it somehow. So that's how it is. But strategically, Maldives, Lakshadweep, and Diego Garcia, they sit astride the lines of communications cutting across Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean into the Bay of Bengal and across Malacca. So there's no doubt about that. We have to in addition to a soft power, we have to see as to how do we influence the governments that are in power in Sri Lanka. That is something we'll need to see and take a larger look at that. Thank you. Over to you, Birendra.
Thank you, sir. Very well covered the aspects which have a major significance of the Indian and Maldives the relationship, and the projection. What you said was very important. The projection as a soft power, but yes, showing the hard line. In this, I will narrate that the fear of danger is 10,000 times more than the danger itself. So that soft power should show an inner line, which is required. That yes, we deal softly, but there's a hard fact which they have to follow. And the aspect which I think Brigadier Karan and General Sudhakar Jee had brought out, and more people-to-people contact is the answer to further take on the relationship between our neighbors. And it is like our neighbors which are there; they are the necklace of diamonds around us. And उनको तराशना जरूरी है. You have to polish them and make them good. So they remain with us. That is a very urgent need. Actually, we have been neglecting that for a very long time. And they're not only They are our neighbors. They are our buffer states in between for anyone coming towards us. They require more attention than anything else to make us more robust. And the last issue which comes up in the mind is that the aspect of the change of government in Maldives or have been there for a long time. The coups have been there, and the policies changing. Is there a requirement that some issue which can be done up with Maldives so that there is a near permanency? Because nothing is permanent, but near permanency. With this point, I'll go to General Sudhakar Jee to cover it. Is there a possibility, sir? Over to you, sir.
Yeah, look, very good question, Virender. I think we need to identify those themes which will actually hurt them the most in times of crisis. Because call it, okay, that's a wrong way of expressing. We have to select the point of leverage. The point of leverage that comes to my mind with regard to Maldives is that which is the component in its economy which gives them maximum or generates maximum percentage of revenue. It is tourism. When you talk about tourism, is it only a human being or the comfort level that you ensure, the stay in the hotel, the water that he or she drinks? Nobody, very rarely you will come across people drinking water that drink beer. Okay, so it's a Maldives, incidentally, is the most expensive tourism destination in the world, one of the most expensive. So you have very high end quality of tourists coming there. So if we can have some kind of a leverage in the tourism, percentage, when I was dealing with the subject at that point in time, 28, 26 to 36 percentage of the GDP of Maldives is to be supported by tourism. Now it must have gone up, it must be touching around 32% or 35. So if that is the kind of leverage, if we can have any hotel you go to Maldives, from the fresh to the hard variety, and from the beverages to the water. Water, incidentally, they have only one desalination plant, and did that desalination plant way back. And I myself, I was dealing with the subject. It was installed by an engineer of Singapore, but his services could not be secured to repair in the year 2014 or 15, 15, I think. So India actually rushed Bisleri bottles. We harnessed from Delhi and transported them with the IL-76. And we also diverted one of the ships going towards the Horn of Africa, towards Djibouti side, because the ship had lots of storage capacity. So the one ship getting diverted, it took care of the requirement of 5 lakh people, for at least for, if not long, at least for 20. So such like leverages, another leverage that comes to my mind is that it's a the island territories are so far off for the casualty evacuation and for medical treatment. You remember there was a stage when Miju came to power, he had cancelled all medical evacuation to India. His patients, Maldivian patients, they used to go to Sri Lanka, from Sri Lanka to Thailand, from Thailand to China. That was the turnaround or the line of communication for evacuating. Look at the cost factor. And sooner or later he realized, yes, there was the death of a very high class, very senior executive patient who was being evacuated from one island to Malé, and from Malé to Sri Lanka. He passed away in between. He could not be evacuated, he could not be saved. But had he been brought to India, let's say Tiruvananthapuram, he could have been saved. So those like issues. There is also a requirement to tell our story. There are no storytellers. The media is assuming so much of importance. Social media is fine, but formal media also, we have our military authorities there, we have a DA. Somebody should be given the responsibility to communicate, to engage with the people on the formal lines. It may be having from the civil bureaucrat side, but I really don't know. So basically, I'm trying to highlight these are the leverages, but most important, permanent kind of leverage is that as on today, Maldives for its electric supply. It's a tourism destination. Every hotel has to have 24 into 7, 365 supply of power and electricity. They don't have electricity. They are dependent on fossil fuel. So is there a case in point for India to extend services and explore if there is any possibility of any nearby oil field? Or is there a case in point like the proposal we proposed? I had only proposed it with Sri Lanka. We must extend underwater cable and make Sri Lanka dependent on India as far as the regular supply of electricity and power is concerned. 365 kilometers is nothing, or 398 or 400 kilometers. We can make use of some kind of a insulated transmission line underwater and provide these electric connections to Maldives, make them dependent on us. Similarly, we have a banking sector. The bank recently, if I am not wrong, it came in open media, the RBI. Earlier, we used to have one outlet of State Bank of India at some place, I have forgotten. Banking sector should be actually encouraged. Our Indian diaspora is 29,000, maybe because every country wants to boost up its economy. Okay, tourism is such a concept. As on today, they are looking after high-end tourism. There could also be a segment for the low-end tourism also. For low-end tourism, we require a different kind of a ecosystem. So for the direct flights which had been suspended, I think for some time, we could also have direct flights from our airports. People could be encouraged to go to that place and come back. Also, the research. Sorry, I forgot one point. There is a threat. There is a threat to Maldives' security and stability. Now, what is the threat to Maldives? Like the way it happened in 1988, and India intervened by virtue of being the first responder or proximal responder. There is also a threat to the existence of these from the radical elements. One really doesn't know the way things are changing. Pakistan has gone in for a what do you call special mutual defense act or something with Saudi Arabia. The dynamics are changing. So my mind is playing in a different way. Maybe Pakistan is the arch rival of Israel. If Pakistan and Israel they sign some document, the Abraham Accord, which is actually nullified now, may suddenly get revived. Okay, so such kind of deal. Now, Pakistan and Maldives, they have got deals. Pakistan has got an understanding with Maldives that in case of criticality and in times of need during conflict, it will come to its rescue. It may not be there in writing. By virtue of the Sunni affiliation, by virtue of their dependence on the madrasas training in Pakistan, these kind of understandings are there. So if we can create some caveat, some kind of a gap, some kind of a difference, and try and play our role in a very creative manner, perhaps these are the things we have to look in for, and maybe in times ahead, why only supply of fresh and hard variety of ration? Even the medical care, transportation, why not we have a special aims there? All India Institute of Medical Science. We have IIT there in Malé. We change the complete education system of Maldives as long as the island is existing, and we generate some kind of employment opportunities. The water, incidentally, drinking water is a scarcity there. Today, the sea water is getting into the a very limited number of aquifers. The fresh water is getting polluted, contaminated with seawater. This is another issue. We can have a pipeline for 500 kilometers and connect with Maldives, make them dependent on the drinking water also, or make them do the rainwater harvesting, teach them, go in for this kind of engineering support. The agriculture also can be another important segment where we can extend our support and make them dependent on us, because over the factor of dependency lies continued stability and continued formation or establishment of a leverage which our country can utilize to safeguard our national interests and national security.
Thank you, sir. I think you have brought out the crux issues of the connectivity and the near permanence of the issues and the relationship between India and Maldives. The aspect of educational institutions, which to my mind seems to be a a long drawn issue which can have a relationship and molding of the opinion of the citizens of Maldives. And it is a very important aspect which needs to be looked after. The other aspect of providing them with the livelihood and also potable water which pipeline can be laid. With this, again, I'll come back to the Lakshadweep islands and the proximity of that, and developing that as a base of ours, which can the Maldives can be within the influence of that. That issue also needs to be seen. The aspect of reassessment of our island territories, particularly our own and which are in the Indian Ocean, and in relation to Andaman Nicobar Island, Sri Lanka we had covered, Lakshadweep and Maldives. I'll go to Brigadier Karan to uh, put some light on that and bring out the connection between all these island countries and island territories of our own. Over to Brigadier Karan, sir.
Thank you, Brigadier. No, we were talking about the influence of there is soft power backed by hard power. There's Operation Sindoor, which we carried out in Pakistan. I'm sure it had a major effect on Maldives. Pakistan has been presenting itself as an alternate, and the increasing radicalization, in my view, of Maldives youth is something which Pakistan has actively been fostering. So, continuance of Sindoor, in addition to other benefits, as a side benefit will be that Maldives will stop looking at Pakistan as a sustainer of any kind of, or expect any kind of sustenance from Pakistan. Pakistan cannot sustain it uh, material point of view. It's too far, and it doesn't have the naval or the merchant capability. It can certainly create problems from India by radicalization and encouraging them to go the Chinese way. But if that country is itself getting knocked about every now and then by India as part of its ongoing ops Sindoor, I think that is one major uh, way of influencing how the Maldivian government would think as far as future is concerned. In the past, India has been soft on its neighbors. I mean, if you look at Bangladesh, we gave them everything. Not only did our army fight for its independence, we gave them everything. You're talking about electricity, fuel, railway lines, medical institutions, etc., etc. But now look what happened. I mean, uh, in a flick of a switch, the entire country has now become almost antagonistic towards India. But and there is an underlying reason for that, because they do not care about India's hard power, because India been has never exhibited its will or ability to uh, execute if its uh, interests are being interfered with, or if its interests are being harmed. Only superpowers can do that. Only powerful nations can do that. But we have not been doing. Otherwise, this what happened in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka also, at some point in time, you gave us the thumbs up sort of a thing, and we were out, and the Chinese were in. But obviously, they realized later, and they're trying to now carry out a balancing act. But it indicates not a weakness in the Sri Lankan or the Bangladeshi or the Maldivian. It indicates a weakness in our policy, in our polity, and in how we are able to project ourselves. And one of the reasons is in the Indian system of governance, the military and the strategic decision making bodies are compartmentalized. The military has, in my view, little say in the strategization of Indian foreign policy. Indian military traditionally is looked upon as being a defensive thing, and on occasions, if the situation so demands, we do an Op Sindoor like thing or a Balakot thing like thing, and we say, "Oh, we've done a great job." But when we look at Bangladesh, we look at Sri Lanka, we look at how Maldives did a India out operation, election sort of campaign, it indicates that our strategization or our ability to control our immediate neighbors has been not so good. And this is one area where we need to look at, and this will only improve if we look at our own internal structures and we re-examine our internal structures. Because presently our strategy is totally dominated by MEA, and MEA does what MEA does. It does economics, politics, and all other things, education, water, electricity. It will do all that, but it will not do what it cannot do, and that is military projection. And therefore, that is why when we, at the apex level, we work out our power projection, or rather, I would use the word our ability to influence our immediate neighbors. Like, for example, Maldives, which is critical for us, that no Chinese influence is able to step in here. We need to take a relook as to how we strategize. I think that is not their weakness, it is our weakness, which they have exploited. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very well brought out. And the compartmentalization at the higher level, that needs to be taken care of, and the military strategy needs to be co-opted into the national strategy. That is also very important. And role of the Chinaman, proximity of the Chinaman, and coming particularly to Maldives, that also needs to be seen. There is a requirement that realignment, reassessment is required to be done, and it is an ongoing process. I don't feel that it is a one-time issue. It is a regular thing which should continue. Very aptly given out. It gives out the future course of action which is required to be done in relation to Maldives and in relation to our immediate neighbors. With this, I'll go to the questions which are there in the comments box. Some of the questions have already been answered. The sea lane, Mr. Akash had put up regarding our safety of the sea lanes and capability suppression, enemy aggression, which General Sudhakar Jee already covered. There's one question which is directly for General Sudhakar Jee by Gitanjali Radharam. That is Thora Kunu going down. It is particularly, I think, the sea water which is coming up, sir. And Gitanjali has also asked a question which say Maldives is supporting us or is supporting China. This aspect I'll request bigger Karan to cover later on. Over to General Sudhakar Singh.
Can you repeat the question, Virender?
Sir, Gitanjali Radharam has said Thorakuru. Thorakuru must be one of the islands. It is come on the screen, sir.
Oh, Thorakuru going, okay, going down. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, is Thorakuru going down, General Sudhakar? Yes, it is going down. But most important thing I want to actually interject here with is that China. There is a friend of mine who just sent me a post, and this post is of quite a latest one. China is making a naval base in Maldives in the guise of an agricultural project. Okay, so this is behind, I think, the bridge, Hulhule Bridge. There's an airport bridge which China has put in money. They made a lot of things: airport bridge, housing colony. So now this naval base, they are trying to develop this into a kind of a thing like the way they have done in South China Sea. They will utilize the platform, something like akin to Gwadar or Djibouti. They will have maybe in times ahead, they will have frigates positioned here, spy vessels. Also, there is another factor I want to share with the audience. They have a concept of distant fishing vessel fleet. The distant fishing vessel fleet. It's a new concept of China after the modernization started in 2015. The civil and military fusion is taking place, wherein you will find PLS soldiers in the garb of fishing men are traveling in the fishing boats or the vessels, going off to far off places like Maldives. They operate in the outskirts of the exclusive economic zone. Exclusive economic zone is 200 nautical miles from the coastline. So they operate in deep sea, carry out, do fishing, and after the fish is harvested, they come near the port, and from the port they have drying mechanism. They have got also fresh water, the fridge, deep freezers. They put them into that, put them into the aircraft. There are direct flights from Malé to the east part of China to be transported. Similarly, they have similar things in the exclusive economic zone of Hambantota. They have also things akin to this at Chapku. Chapku is what we write as Kyupkhu, something like that in Myanmar. Gwadar, Oman. So this distant fishing vessel thing is a very dangerous thing, which is actually being deployed in the garb or guise of civilian activity, but which has got the potential to be converted or manipulated to be employed as wartime platforms. So God only knows what they have apart from fishing kind of gears inside or the nets. They may be having something else. One has to be very mindful because the Operation Sindhu report formally, I only wish and pray that Government of India takes out a white paper on the document and brings out all issues relevant for which the nation has to strategize is formulate its plan. We don't know because more I read, more deeper I go into it, I come to a conclusion that you, me, and some of us nearby who are keeping in touch with the latest domains or the open sources, we know that yes, we have given a hammering to Pakistan. They dare not think about it second time. But China has been planning for the preceding 2 years. The distant fishing vessels had started moving from China's coastline in 2022. They had been deployed in Andamans. They had been deployed in Arabian Sea in 2023-24. So, likewise, there are a lot of meaning. And in order to contrast this or counter it effectively, this particular naval base, which is coming up in the guise of agricultural project, I personally feel Brigadier Karan made a very important mention that Diogo Gracia now it is actually passed to, it has been handed over back to Mauritius Island or the Mauritius country. Chagos Island, they call it Chagos, I think. Chagos is the name. Chagos Archipelago in which Diego Gracia falls. We have best of relationship with Mauritius. As time passes by, since it is going to be, it is there in our backyard, maybe our strategic planners they could factor in this particular issue, keep it in the mind, negotiate with Mauritius to have a little toehold in Diego Gracia, maybe. Because as on today, no civilian tourist is allowed to go there except for the military people who are catalogued, who are invented, they're existing in the list. So with UK and US surrendering formally and completely their platform of this particular military base to Mauritius, I think India would do well if we can actually secure that particular flank, the southern flank of Maldives. Next is about the point which you made, Brigadier Virender. It's a very good strategic thought process. Why make pipelines go through directly from India to Maldives? Let's develop our Lakshadweep. Let everything pass through Lakshadweep to Maldives. The distance between India to Maldives will further be reduced rather than 400 kilometers. The Minicoy Island and the nearest island of Maldives is 130 kilometers. So you develop your Lakshadweep. In the process of developing, you're coming in proximity. Not only you are developing your naval power, but also the civilian resources, converting your logistic capability in Lakshadweep into extending outreach to support and sustain Maldives in times of crisis and otherwise. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you,
This is
sir.
this is a this is a sensitive question, ma'am Gitanjali. You know the answer. I don't want to dwell on this, so
Yeah,
I'll not talk about this.
there's one last question of Gitanjali, which I'll request Brigadier Karan to give a very brief answer. And Gitanjali says Maldives come around to supporting us, or they will lean towards China in future. Brigadier Karan sir, over to you, sir. A very brief answer is requested.
Yeah, if you look at it, if you look at the pluses that we have in our favor, the geography is in our favor. So we have to make sure that the Chinaman is not able to influence, and the main methodology that the Chinaman uses to influence countries which are economically and financially stressed, like Maldives and Sri Lanka, he's using the debt. What do you call that? You know, under the BRI scheme, putting them into a sort of a debt trap. And so they have to forego sovereignty, or they have to sort of forego or to make concessions to China as per its demands. If we are able to prevent that, and if we are able to sort of bring in, display a certain level of military capability and the willingness to use it, where it is indicative that we will not allow this sort of a thing to happen, which is against our interest, then we can expect Maldives to remain connected with us, because it is favorable for that country to remain connected with us from all points of. I mean, General Sudhakar has given so many ideas. So that is how I look at it, and if we sort of play our cards well, we will continue to retain a very good influence there, or at least at the very minimal maintain good balance and keep the Chinese out. If our policies are weak, then the Chinaman may be able to establish a foothold. That future will tell. At this moment, it is not possible to sort of indicate something. Thank you.
Thank you,
Over to you.
sir. Thank you, Brigadier Karan. The aspects which have been covered very vividly in the discussion today brings an important reductions that Maldives is location-wise, geopolitically, geographically, and relationship-wise, historically, militarily, a very important country for us. And we have to, as a nation, see that the connectivity with Maldives remains, be it through the commercial activities, be it through the influence. And the point further emphasized by General Sudhakar Jee that uh, Lakshadweep Island, we develop it and Maldives come under like area of influence, area of interest, and area of influence. So probably it will fall into the area of influence if we develop Lakshadweep, the nearest places. It can be analyzed, assessed, and which is the suitable islands what we have as a militarily or as a naval outfit which can be put there. So that will take care of that, and people to people contact. That is another issue, and the reassessment of our island territories and the islands and the island countries in the Indian Ocean. And then I reiterate that Andaman Nicobar Island should be reformatted, and we should have an Indian Ocean Command. So all these gambit comes into one command, and we look after that. And the perspective needs to change. That is the necessity, and India has to grow into size towards the Indian Ocean, not only towards our northern borders. And it is a navy which has to per se take control of the things which are happening in the Indian Ocean for the commercial and the strategic outlook. With this, I thank the audience and the audience asking questions, and thank the esteemed panelist, Brigadier Karan Singh Rathore and General Sudhakar Jee, for giving such insights into the Maldives. And I thank Yuvraj also, who's looking after us from the backdrop and giving us all the support from Delhi. Thank you, Yuvraj. And I sign off. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Virendra. Very nicely conducted. Congratulations. And Gitanjali ma'am should be thanked for the question she is raising. She knows the answer, so I am not replying to that. Yeah, Thokarunu Island, she knows the answer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.